A person comes back home from outside. He removes his shirt and leaves it on the bed instead of folding it and putting it back in the cupboard. That person may say, "This is fine, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's messy, besides tomorrow I'm going to use it again. So why put it back properly?" Now, which is the right action? Leaving it on the sofa or putting it back in the cupboard? How do we determine this? And more importantly, why should we know what the right actions are? What is the point? I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person. How does this change my life? You see, if you're seeking for happiness, satisfaction, and fulfillment, if you're looking for a brighter, energetic, stress-free life, all you need to do is perform the right actions in life. Simple enough. Obvious enough. Right action, good life. Wrong action, not so good life. Now, who determines what is a right action? Who is the judge? Are there a set of standards and moral or ethical codes of conduct to follow? What is right for one person may be wrong for another. What is wrong for one person may be right for another. This essentially is the student's question from the weekly Vedanta classes. How do we know what is right action? How do we know if we are engaging our intellect when we decide to take an action? In order to know whether you're performing the right action, we must first know what is right action in the first place. We can have a look at a few factors given by Vedanta philosophy. Right actions is not following what others say it is okay to do. Others say it is okay, so I also can follow the same. Right actions is not doing what feels right at the moment. Right action is based upon reason and logic of the intellect. Wrong actions are based upon whims and fancies of the mind. Right action comes from the intellect. That's the part of us that thinks logically, that steps back and looks at the bigger picture. Wrong action, that comes from the mind. That part of us that is ruled by emotions, impulses, and whatever feels easiest for me to do right now. That which is comfortable and convenient for me to do right now. In the example earlier about the person who leaves his shirt on the sofa and he says, "It's fine, no problem. Tomorrow I'm going to use it anyway. So why fold it and put it back?" The question is, how is that decision being made? Is it your mind or your intellect? That determines for you whether that action is right or wrong for you. If the mind is in charge, two things happen. And this is very important. So please listen carefully. When your mind is in charge, number one, you will not realize that you are doing something possibly incorrect. Number two, you will completely believe, feel, and think what you're doing is correct, it is fine, even when it may not be. This is the tricky part. When we're acting from the mind, we don't even question it. It just feels right because it is convenient. It gives us that immediate and instant comfort. But when we engage the intellect, we see things differently. We step back. We realize maybe putting the shirt away is a small habit that could build my discipline later on. Maybe these small actions can help me later on in my life. Or your intellect may say, maybe I feel it is easier or more comfortable to do this action. But actually I got to put that aside and check and perform what is the right action for me to do, even if it is convenient, even if it is comfortable for me. When your mind is operating in a way doing the thinking, you will function not only on likes and dislikes of the mind, but also the selfishness of the ego. And you may think, feel, or believe that you are perfectly right. Or you may not be aware that your actions could be incorrect. If you're functioning on the intellect, you will know for yourself that the action that you're performing is right or wrong. And if it is wrong, that you need to perform the right action, even if it goes against what your mind and ego feels, thinks, and believes is correct. The second question, how do we know if you are engaging your intellect? So how do we make sure that we are thinking with the intellect and not just reacting with the mind? Simple. Pause and check in with yourself. Before taking an action, or if you're about to take an action, ask yourself, am I doing this action because it makes sense or just because it is easier for me? Am I doing this because it suits me personally, or am I doing this because it is the right thing to do? Am I doing this because I feel like it, or am I doing it because of the proper reasons? This is a very simple exercise in self-awareness. Whatever action you are deciding to take, do a little bit of analysis and conclude whether your actions are based upon appropriate reason and logic and not the personal demands, assumptions, and expectations of your own mind. For example, see, you may be at a restaurant and you finished eating, and there's a tray where people put their utensils after the meal. Your mind may say, this is not my job. Someone else is supposed to do it. Why should I do it? It's not my responsibility. And there's no rule here that I have to follow. Not only that, nobody can force me. But your intellect may say, true, correct. It's not required for you to do it. It's not your responsibility. There's no rule here. And I can decide what to do on my own. But wouldn't things run smoother if everyone did their part? Your intellect tells your mind, it only takes 2 seconds. Why not just do it? Your intellect tells your mind, it's a small choice, but these small choices will add up for me later on. So, if your intellect is developed, automatically you will know 1 + 1 = 2. You don't have to ask yourself if this is correct. Only when the intellect is not developed, you will have these doubts and indecisions. This is the power and the value of the intellect. It helps you all along the way. Your life will be on cruise control, automatic, no struggles, no regrets, no agitations. With all these obstacles out of the way, you can start to pursue something higher in life. In short, the more developed your intellect is, the more clarity you will gain. The more clarity you gain, the more you will realize on your own for yourself what the right or wrong action is. And life, dear students, dear friends, is nothing but putting in all that effort to keep understanding what right actions are and living by those right choices and actions. Individually, you will slowly start to see a change in yourself, which will be reflected in your life. And also as a society, we will hopefully start working together and hopefully start to get along with each other.